Thank you so much, Pastor Mabenge. Good evening to you. Good evening, everyone. It's a blessing to spend this time together, and I pray that this presentation would be helpful. I'm excited about it, and I pray that you would be encouraged as well. Just going to share my screen. Pastor Mabenge, maybe you can just confirm if you can see the screen there.
It's confirmed, my leader.
Thank you so much. So, as Pastor Mabenge introduced, our topic this evening is the Grow Your Church Evangelistic Strategy. And this grow model has so much potential. And I really believe personally and as a church, if we apply this in our disciple-making strategies, it is going to bear great fruit. Let me just organize myself here. Okay, there we go. So I would like us to look specifically at how we can use the grow model as a church. Now, there is a resource available on the SSPM, Sabbath School and Personal Ministries website of the General Conference, where this Grow Your Church or the Grow Model strategy is also applied to our individual disciple making, as we seek to make other disciples. So that is another presentation on its own. But today, I would like us to look at how this applies to us as a church. And I think Pastor Patrick Stunder's presentation yesterday led perfectly into this presentation, where the way the world church is going and the emphasis is on making disciples. Even in our mission statement of the Seventh-day Adventist Church and even of the Cape Conference, the mission is to make disciples of Jesus Christ. So global total member involvement, TMI. I'm sure many of us, if not most of us, have heard of TMI, total member involvement. So global total member involvement is an initiative of the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. It calls on every church and every member to become actively involved in making disciples using Christ's method. Every local church around the world is asked to launch this ongoing, culture-changing, personal and public evangelism strategy. So this strategy, we should develop a discipleship culture, and I believe this Grow model can assist us in doing that in our own lives as members of the church, but also every church as an entity in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. According to the Seventh-day Adventist Church Manual, the top priority of every church board is to develop an active and ongoing disciple-making plan. Pastor Stander mentioned this yesterday. That is the priority of the church board, to have a disciple-making plan, a discipleship plan. This plan should enlist all members and children in personal outreach. Everyone has a role to play. Everyone can reach out and disciple others in their own way. The church prospers when it devotes its first interests and highest energies to involving every member in proclaiming the good news and making disciples. So as you'll see throughout this presentation, involving every member, creating opportunity for every member to get involved, to contribute in the disciple-making process is important. Now, the Global TMI Church Planner, I've got one here. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see this. I've shared a link to some WhatsApp groups, and you'll find you can download this church planner there. So there's a church planner as well as a personal disciple-making journal. But for tonight's presentation, I'm looking at the church planner. Now, the Global TMI Church Planner will help local church pastors and lay leaders create an active and ongoing disciple-making plan to involve every member in mission. So the task of the church board, or the primary role of the church board, is to have a discipleship plan for the church. And this resource can assist the church in doing that very task. I want us to start off by looking at creating a disciple-making culture in the church. And I think that is the way we are headed as a church. And may God help us in our own conference to have this culture as well. Global total member involvement is not just a slogan or a theme. It's a call for every church to develop an ongoing disciple-making culture based on 3 principles. Number 1, success is based on the number of workers, not just baptisms. While we appreciate baptisms, we record baptisms, success is not only based on the number of baptisms, but on the number of workers. The goal is not just to reach everyone, but to involve everyone. Are we just creating members, or are we creating disciple makers? Are we creating workers that will lead others to be disciples of Jesus? So that's the first principle of a disciple-making culture, creating workers for Jesus. Gospel Workers, page 200 says, the real character of the church is measured not by the high profession she makes, not by the names enrolled on her books, but by what she is actually doing for the Master, by the number of her persevering, faithful workers. So it's not just about the names enrolled on the church books, it's about active disciple makers. Testimonies, volume 9, page 86. When we are successful in the work of soul saving, those who are added to the faith will in turn use their ability in giving the truth to others. That's what we want. As people become members of the church, they're not only members, but now they are disciple makers. They go and give the truth that they have learned to others. They share the gospel, the good news of Jesus with others. The second principle of this disciple-making culture is personal labor, which was Christ's method, is the primary work of the church. So we need to understand what is the primary work of the church, and that is personal labor. Church programs and events support personal ministry, not the other way around. I know at our Sabbath School and Personal Ministries advisory recently, we were talking about this. We are a very program-oriented, event-oriented church. Even the terminology of our calendars, it's a calendar of events. Now, there's nothing wrong with events in and of themselves, but that shouldn't replace the primary work of the church, which is personal labor. Not only are large events not a substitute for personal labor, but they can't be successful without it. So personal labor and public events, programs work hand in hand, but you cannot substitute personal labor with events. That will never create a disciple-making culture. Christian Service, page 117 says, the Lord desires that his word of grace shall be brought home to every soul. To a great degree, this must be accomplished by personal labor. Interestingly, it doesn't say by public events, by personal labor. This was Christ's method. Both are important, but personal labor is essential. Your work may accomplish more real good than more extensive meetings if they lack in personal effort. When both are combined, that is, meetings, public meetings and personal effort, when both are combined with the blessing of God, a more perfect and thorough work may be wrought. But if we can have but one part done, let it be the individual labor of opening the scriptures in households. So if you have to choose between one, if you can only do one, personal labor for others is what it should be, not the public meetings. But the ultimate is to have both working together. That's Christian Service, page 121. The third principle of a disciple-making culture is the church's disciple-making plan is to be active and ongoing. It's not just an event. The disciple-making role of local churches is twofold. A, equip and involve church members in personal disciple-making. And then B, plan calendar events and programs. But later we'll see when we go through the the church planner, which can help churches plan for their discipleship, their disciple-making plan. It involves both of these areas. We need to not only plan calendar events and programs in our church calendar, we need to look at how can we equip church members to disciple others? How can we involve them in making disciples? How can the church create opportunities for members to be involved in discipleship? So we'll look at both of those, keep those two in mind. So these three principles, again, success is based on the number of workers, not just baptisms. Personal labor, which was Christ's method, is the primary work of the church. Number three, the church's disciple-making plan is to be active and ongoing. If we can do these three things, it will, by God's grace, create a disciple-making culture within our churches. Here's a quiz reflecting on what we've just shared. True success in soul winning occurs when those we baptize give the what to others? Give the truth to others. Number two, if we can only have one evangelistic campaigns or individual labor, we should choose evangelistic campaigns. Is that true or false? From what we've learned, it is false. If we have to only choose one, we should choose individual labor. Number three, the first of the two disciple-making roles of the local church is to what and what? Church members in personal labor. To equip and involve. Let's equip them to reach out to make disciples, and let's involve them in discipleship. I want to now move to the disciple-making strategy, and this is where the GROW model comes in. That is the strategy that the church, the Seventh Adventist Church, the Personal Ministries Department is promoting as the disciple-making strategy. So before you even get to those phases of the GROW model, you need to prepare for them, to get ready for mission. So even before you get to step one of the phase, before you even prepare the soil, this is how you can get ready for the mission. Number one, emphasize spiritual revival. If the church isn't revived, how will you be able to reach others? So emphasize spiritual revival, compile an interest list, and establish an interest review process, an interest coordinator, as we heard yesterday. This would be important in step number two here. Number three, provide personal evangelism training. So this is how you prepare to get the church ready for participation in these disciple-making phases or aspects. So let's look at these briefly. Emphasize spiritual revival. Every church should begin its evangelistic efforts with an emphasis on seeking God and experiencing spiritual revival and reformation. Just makes me think of yesterday when Pastor Patrick was saying that worship, personal devotions is in the center of those other responsibilities, or the first responsibility. It was also mentioned that prayer and fasting, let us prepare ourselves. And that is affirmed here as well. We need to be spiritually revived. Let us seek that experience as a preparation for mission. 1 Corinthians 3 verse 6 in the New King James Version says, I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase. So no growth is possible and no plans can be successful without the presence and power of God in our lives. We are just the instruments, the tools, but it is God's power that should be at work. We need a vital connection with Him. So through sermons, through studies and other programs, families and individual church members should be encouraged to spend unrushed, focused daily time with God in prayer and Bible study. Nothing can substitute your own personal relationship with Jesus. And we need to encourage that, inspire others, equip others to have that personal relationship with Jesus. It is out of that overflow of that relationship that we can be a blessing and minister to others. So after spiritual revival, number 2, establish an interest list and review process. This is very practical. Getting members involved in making disciples is all about generating and working with interests. Now, let's define an interest. An interest is someone who has shown an interest in spiritual truth or church programs. Not everyone is an interest, but if they've attended a church program, they're an interest. If you're having a conversation and someone is open to the introduction of the spiritual element in the conversation, that is an interest. But this person is not yet a baptized member of the church. So every church should compile and regularly review a list of these individuals. This is called an interest list. So the interest coordinator would be responsible for this list. Now, the companion Global TMI personal planner, this other one, which we're not going to get into this evening, just referenced here, this personal planner guides members in developing their own interest list as a person, not now as a church, but as an individual. As the individuals on their list begin to explore spiritual truth or church programs, as you personally are reaching out to others, if people are open and they are open for the spiritual elements, then they can be added to the church interest list as well. So establish an interest list and review process. Elect an interest coordinator. This is a very important role in the church, working closely with the personal ministries leader and the pastor. It's important, if your church doesn't have one, encourage us, let's request that the church elects interest coordinator. Compile a list of all non-members who have shown an interest in spiritual truth or church programs. Once you have that, generate new interests to add to the list regularly. Maybe you have a special music program and people attend church. They should be added. VOP, Bible study context in the community. All those who have an interest in spiritual truth should be added. Schedule a time to review this list each month. Ask members to follow up with interest. So as you review, make sure that people are promptly followed up who are on the interest list, that we're communicating with them, following up with them. Send invitations and other communications regularly to the interests on your list. I really like this slide. So here is an example of the review process. As you can see there, the names of the people on your interest list are there. Column for status, what's next, and another column for how. So for example, Timothy, okay, he's made a decision for baptism. So what's next? He needs to be prepared for baptism. Okay, how? Joe is going to prepare Timothy for baptism. So you need a plan to make sure everyone is followed up. Maria is interested, but intermittent in that interest. What's next? She needs a series of Bible studies. Okay, we've assigned Martha to offer Bible studies for her. John, status missing. Maybe he hasn't been attending for a while, so we need to visit and invite him. Who's assigned? James is assigned to visit and invite to Sabbath school. Practical, an example of an interest list. So assess the spiritual status of each interest, determine the next step in the development, and assign a church member to follow up. Here's the church manual on the work of the board, page 138. Encourage the interest coordinator to ensure that every interest is personally and promptly followed up by assigned laypersons. So we really want this aspect of the church to be a well-oiled machine. As we have knowledge of people that are interested, let us strike while the iron is hot. Let us communicate, keep in contact with them, invite them, make sure that what they are requesting has been fulfilled. Number 3, provide personal evangelism training, still getting ready to participate in this disciple-making strategy of the GROW model. Personal labor was Christ's method, and it is the key to all successful evangelism. And if personal labor is the key, we need to train people how to labor for others. Christian Service, page 121. Your work may accomplish more real good than more extensive meetings if they lack in personal effort. We read this one earlier. When both are combined with the blessing of God, a more perfect and thorough work may be wrought. But if we can have but one part done, let it be the individual labor of opening the scriptures in households. So individual labor is essential. Based on Ellen White's counsel, the church's disciple-making plan should combine public and personal efforts, but prioritize involving members in personal evangelism. And we find this in the Apostle Paul's example. Acts chapter 20, verse 20, in the New King James Version says, I kept back nothing that was helpful, but proclaimed it to you and taught you publicly and from house to house. So there was the public element of his ministry and the personal element from house to house, combining public and personal ministry. So to involve church members in personal evangelism, every pastor and church should provide training and resources to equip members, Sabbath school classes, and other small groups for individual labor. So the personal ministries department, one of the reasons for its existence in the church manual, there's 3 of them. One of them is to train, or maybe 2, train and resource members to get involved in evangelism and disciple making. So that is our responsibility. Let our churches be training churches and resource centers for individual labor. Testimonies for the Church, volume 9, page 124. Ministers preach the truths that will lead to personal labor for those who are out of Christ. What we do may lead to that end. That personal labor is key to our effectiveness as a church. Many would be willing to work if they were taught how to begin. They need to be instructed and encouraged. Every church should be a training school for Christian workers. May God help our churches to be just that. That is from Ministry of Healing, page 149. So in this provision of evangelism training, we can train in areas, it's not limited to these, but here are some examples. How to pray for interests, how to befriend and minister to the needs of others, how to visit and contact interests, how to share literature and media, how to invite people to Sabbath school, church, and events, how to invite people to take Bible studies, how to give Bible studies, and how to mentor and train new members, to integrate them into the church and to train them to reach out to others. If we can start with these, it would go a long way. So here's some questions as we reflect on this section. The starting point for getting members ready for mission is what revival? Spiritual revival. We need to be revived spiritually ourselves. You can't give what you don't have. Number 2, getting members involved in making disciples is all about generating and working with interests. That is our desire. Every church should be a what for Christian workers? A training school for Christian workers. Okay, with that preparation, now we can jump. Now we're ready. We've been revived. We have an interest list. We have we've reviewed the process. We regularly review it. We have been trained. Now, let's start the disciple-making strategy. What I appreciate about this this model that is based on the agricultural process is all 5 phases of this disciple-making strategy are important. Discipleship is all of them. Discipleship is not only harvesting in an evangelistic campaign. Discipleship is not only preserving at the end. Every aspect is important and needs to be catered for. We'll touch on each of these aspects still. Matthew 9 verse 37 and Luke 8 verse 11 says, "The harvest truly is plentiful, but the laborers are few." The seed is the word of God. So Jesus himself is using agricultural language here to explain discipleship. And this disciple making strategy based on an agricultural process is not something we thought up. Jesus himself used this concept. So using the biblical analogy of the harvest cycle, Global TMI emphasizes 5 phases of essential disciple-making ministries. Please note these, all 5 are essential. If we miss 1 or 2, we're going to be unbalanced. So here they are. Number 1, health and friendship building ministries. This is preparing the soil of the heart. This is phase 1. Number 2, or the first aspect. Number 2, literature, media, and invitation ministries. This is how we plant the seeds of truth into the soil that has been prepared. Number 3, Bible study ministry. This is how we cultivate the spiritual interest, those who respond to the planting of the seeds of truth, those who are open to that spiritual element. We can cultivate that spiritual interest through Bible studies. Number 4, evangelistic reaping ministry. This is where we harvest decisions for Christ, whether in a public meeting or in personal appeals, but where people make decisions for Christ, for baptism. And number 5, new member discipleship ministry. This is once people have been baptized, we need to preserve the harvest. We need to integrate them into the life of the church, make sure they're established, train them how to reach others as well. So these are the 5 phases of the disciple making strategy, the GROW model: prepare, plant, cultivate, harvest, preserve. So let's look at each of these. Prepare the soil of the heart. When we come close to people in friendship and service, remember those 2 words, friendship and service. We're not yet introducing a spiritual element here necessarily. That's not the purpose of this part. We're just seeking to develop friendship through service. We show that we care and gain their confidence. Ministering to people's practical needs with kindness and compassion prepares their hearts to receive the truth of the gospel. Just thinking, we need to be loving Christians, loving and lovable Christians that seek to be a blessing to others, to minister to others in our personal capacity and also as a church. Jesus followed this example. I mean, he went through whole villages were healed of all their sickness. Acts 10:38 says, Jesus went about doing good. This is how Jesus labored for others, and so should we. On the church side, we need to establish health and friendship building ministries. So we need to elect a health ministries leader and community service leaders. These 2 departments would be important, or these 2 ministries would be important in this phase of the disciple-making strategy. As we go through all 5 aspects of this disciple-making strategy, you will see how the different departments can contribute, or how different departments can contribute to the disciple-making strategy. We need to budget annually for needs-based ministries and events. For all of these different phases, we need people to lead them. We need a budget to support them. Number 3, assess local community needs. You can contact civic leaders, maybe do community surveys. And you want to assess these community needs along with your church personnel and resources to match them, to see, okay, here's a need in the community, and here is a resource. We've got the personnel and resources to meet a need. So how can we be relevant and a blessing to the community, ministering to their needs, following Christ's method of ministry, which we looked at yesterday? mingling, having sympathy with others, ministering to their needs, winning their confidence, and then bidding them to follow Jesus. So plan ways to inspire, equip, and involve members in making friends and doing kind deeds, while also scheduling events to build relationships and meet needs in the community. May it really become part of the culture of the church as members and also together corporately, that we are seeking to minister to others, serve others, be kind to others, help others. Provide leadership support as a church board, prayer, promotion, financial support, and participation. So having prepared the soil through health and friendship building activities, let's plant the seeds of truth. We plant seeds of truth when we share literature or media, offer Bible studies, or invite people to church services and events. The more spiritual seeds we plant, the more interested people we will find, and the greater our harvest will be. Now, not everyone will respond to these seeds that are being planted. You think of that parable that Jesus told of the 4 different grounds, the 4 different types of soils. It was planted everywhere. Not all of them were fruitful, but the seeds of truth were planted. God's word was planted. So in this case, let us plant. We don't know where it may be fruitful. This stage is we're planting the spiritual element, seeds of truth. 2 Corinthians 9 verse 6 says, "He who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and he who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully." So let us sow bountifully these seeds of truth. So practically, let's elect a publishing ministries coordinator or a personal ministries assistant to oversee literature, media, and invitation distribution ministries. Budget annually for literature, media, and invitations to Bible studies and church events. For example, the cost of invitation cards that are printed, flyers, social media ad campaigns, mailings, etc. Have a budget for this phase as well, for every phase. Create a prominent display of free literature along with cards or flyers offering Bible studies for members to distribute and as visitors come to the church. Plan ways to inspire, equip, and involve members in sharing literature, media, and invitations year-round, while also scheduling mass distribution efforts, door-to-door, city sidewalks, etc., and advertising campaigns as able. For example, this coming Sabbath is World Impact Day, which would be a mass distribution effort of the missionary book of the year. But also create opportunities for members to share in their own capacity as well, and encourage that, equip them, resource them for that. And then, as in every phase, provide leadership support for this phase as well: prayer, promotion, financial support, and participation. So now that we've planted seeds of spiritual truth, where people are open to it, we need to cultivate that spiritual interest. So one of the longest and most labor-intensive parts of the disciple-making process is to cultivate spiritual interest. This is best accomplished by engaging in full message Bible studies while providing friendship, guidance, and spiritual support. So while you deepen your relationship with the people that you're reaching out to, you are studying the Bible with them. A full message Bible study. This is what you're presenting what we are here to proclaim to the world. Acts 8 verse 30 to 31. New King James Version again. "So Philip ran to him and heard him reading the prophet Isaiah and said, 'Do you understand what you are reading?' And he said, 'How can I unless someone guides me?'" So there's a role for the church to play in guiding people who have spiritual interest, leading them in a series of Bible studies. So this is where VOP comes in, where local church community Bible schools can play a powerful role. We are well set up for this, where we can elect as a church a Bible school coordinator to oversee the Bible study ministry. If we set up a CBS Community Bible School for this phase, this would prepare us to have a, how can I put it, to have a well-organized approach to this, to cultivating the spiritual interest. Let the church budget annually for Bible study guides and other resources. Now, with VOP, depending if you're on Model A and Model B, if you're on Model B, you have to buy the resources. So have a budget where you can buy those resources. Provide resources and training for members to offer, host, and give Bible studies, including personal Bible studies, small group Bible studies, online, drop-off, correspondence, video, or other formats. One can be creative, use a variety of methods to give one's Bible studies to the spiritual interests. Again, plan ways to inspire, equip, and involve members in giving personal studies year-round, while also scheduling periodic Bible study groups or seminars to which members can invite their friends and interests. I hope you're seeing as we go along there. For each phase, there's an aspect where members, we want every member to be involved in a personal capacity. And then there's also a role that the church plays corporately in each of these phases. Provide leadership support again, prayer, promotion, financial support, and participation. So now we are cultivating the spiritual interest through Bible studies. Now, harvesting can either take place personally or publicly. So even during those Bible studies, one can call for decision, for people to make decisions for Christ. Now, full-grown wheat is a blessing only when someone gathers the harvest. If it's just out there in the field, it's not going to help. In the same way, we are counseled to make appeals to those studying Bible truth, urging them to follow Christ and the light revealed to them. So when we study the Bible, there needs to be a practical application, a call for decision, and we need to invite people to make decisions for Christ and the light that God has revealed to them. So this can be done in personal and public settings. Acts 22 verse 16 says, "And now why are you waiting? Arise and be baptized and wash away your sins, calling on the name of the Lord." That was an appeal for a decision. So here the church can appoint an evangelism coordinator and other necessary team members annually for your harvest activities and events. So budget annually for public evangelistic efforts. So this is the phase when we have reaping campaigns, a public evangelistic effort. Plan ways to inspire, equip, and involve members in gaining decisions and preparing people for baptism, while also scheduling at least one evangelistic series each year with an emphasis on securing decisions for Christ and baptism. Now, again, the personal ministry and the public ministry work hand in hand. If we've been faithful in the personal ministry, the friendship evangelism, working, laboring for people, studying with people, the public evangelistic meeting creates an ideal opportunity to call for decisions. It's been successful in calling people for decision. So they work hand in hand, personal and public evangelism. So combine personal effort with public meetings, as I've mentioned, and then provide leadership support, prayer, promotion, financial support, and participation for this phase as well. Now that people have made decisions for Christ, they need to not be neglected. Now we need to preserve the harvest that we've had. So after the joy of the harvest, we must not relax our disciple-making efforts. We must preserve the harvest through nurture and training after baptism. Keep those two words in mind, nurture and training. For the disciple-making process to result in multiplication, newly baptized church members must be taught how to labor for souls. So they mustn't just come and be in the church and be bench warmers. But as soon as they've become members, we need to now train them how to make disciples of others. And probably at that stage, they are the most connected with people outside the church because they've just come in. So let us train new members to share their faith with others. Luke 6 verse 40 says, a disciple is not above his teacher, but everyone who is perfectly trained will be like his teacher. So as disciple makers, let us make more disciple makers. Let us not just create church members. So here again, the church needs to elect a personal ministries assistant to serve as discipleship ministry leader for this aspect of the Grow model. Budget annually for new member discipleship resources and related expenses. For example, the discipleship handbook is a great resource to invest in for this purpose. Assign 1 or 2 members to serve as mentors to every newly baptized member, following a systematic plan to nurture spiritual habits. So this is what we need to keep in mind in this phase. We want to nurture spiritual habits of new members, train in personal evangelism, and integrate them into the life, message, and mission of the church. They need to be fully integrated and participating in the mission of the church. So plan ways to inspire, equip, and involve members in mentoring newly baptized members while identifying and scheduling programs and events that can aid in the nurture of new members. Again, get members involved, train them, equip them, involve them in nurturing, preserving, but also you can plan programs and events that can assist as well, and then provide leadership support for this area as well. So I'm going to check my time. I plan to finish at around 7 to allow time for discussion. So recapping here, to be sure, its disciple-making plan is what? Churches should establish ministries with a leader, budget, annual plan, etc., and not just schedule events. To ensure that it's ongoing, we need leadership. We need to plan for a leader for each phase. We need a budget for each phase. We need a plan for the year for each phase, or for each aspect, should I say, to ensure that this becomes an ongoing plan. So the essential disciple-making ministries, health and friendship building ministries, literature, media, and invitation ministries, Bible study ministry, evangelistic reaping ministry, and new member discipleship ministry. All of these are important. If we lack in any one area, our disciple making is going to be affected. So we need to be balanced and comprehensive in all of these ways. So it would be helpful for each church and for the Personal Ministries Council to evaluate how are we doing in each of these areas. You know, maybe we're very strong on health and friendship building ministries, but maybe we don't convert that. Maybe we don't plant seeds of spiritual truth. Maybe that's a weakness, or maybe you strong in one area, weak in another area, and it affects the whole process. So each church should evaluate where they are and seek to strengthen those growth areas. So here's an example of labeling each ministry activity or event with the primary disciple-making phase. So those 5 are the primary disciple-making phases. A cooking school would be part of the prepare phase. Sharing literature and Bible study invitation cards would be planting seeds of spiritual truth. Signing members to lead or host Bible study series, that would be cultivating. A marriage seminar would be, a friendship building seminar would be part of the prepare phase, or meeting a need in the community. Assigning a member as mentor to each newly baptized member, that is part of the preserve phase. Where would evangelistic meetings fit in? That would be the harvest phase. Okay, how to create, I know I'm sharing a lot, but I look forward to our discussion soon. How to create a disciple-making plan. Now, this is where this resource that is available on the SSPM website is very, very helpful. It makes it practical how to implement this in the local church. And you can find the full instructions on page 18 and 19 in that resource. I sent a link out earlier. For those who received that link, you can go to that link. You'll find where you can download this church planner. But the basic steps are: start with prayer. I think surrendering yourself to God corporately, individually, allowing God to lead. Then plan ahead. Plan before the new year starts. If you plan the year before for the next year, try plan as far ahead as possible. Establish essential ministries. Those that will speak to those 5 aspects of disciple making. Those essential ministries that we spoke about. Work as a team. Don't operate in silos. We heard yesterday, integration, not isolation. Everyone, every member, every ministry, every initiative should be contributing to disciple making, so you can work together and support one another and have a coordinated plan. That's the whole purpose of this disciple making plan. You can also check out the sample plan, which I'll show you just now, how it works, to just get a sense of how this works. But you're not limited. Don't base your plan on what the sample plan says. Complete your own plan using the blank planning form. Evaluate each phase and strengthen or add to weak areas. So before you implement, evaluate, is this balanced? Is this comprehensive? Are we lacking anywhere? To ensure that all of those 5 aspects are covered. Then vote to approve and place programs and events on a calendar. Either the board or the business meeting vote the plan, and then create a calendar that includes, how can I put it, or visually presented as a calendar to see how all of these are working together. So this is what it looks like. You'll see here the preparation or the getting ready phase. I won't go through this in detail, but I encourage you to check it out in that resource. When you read the sample, it's very helpful, very informative as well. As you will see here under prepare and plant, each of these phases has 2 aspects. You'll see here it's divided in equip, involve members in personal labor. So we need to think, how can we equip members, involve them in this aspect personally, and what programs and events can we conduct, to support this aspect, or this aspect of the disciple making strategy. So you'll see it goes through all 5 aspects of the disciple making strategy. So I've just mentioned this: when creating your own plan, complete both sections: how to equip and involve members in personal labor and to conduct programs and events. Both aspects are important. A planning tip here is consider what resources you can give to inspire and equip your members for personal labor, and how you will assign them to follow up with interests. Under every phase, it's an opportunity to educate the church. So get resources that you can share with the church on each phase. Print things out that you can hand out at church. What resources can you give to inspire and equip members? And then actually set them to work. Something that really makes sense to me that I would want to apply going forward is, as leaders, it is our responsibility to create ministry opportunities for all the members to get involved. We aren't to do it all ourselves, but we are to create an opportunity and then assign members to work in these different areas. And planning tip, don't just plan programs and events. That personal labor is important. Testimonies for the Church, Volume 6, page 49. The best help that ministers can give the members of our churches is not sermonizing, but planning work for them. Give each one something to do for others. Everyone has a role to play. Everyone can contribute using their own gifting and resources and talents. I've already touched on this one. Evaluate where the strengths are, where the weak areas are, and then seek to strengthen those areas that are weaker, to ensure that you have a balanced and comprehensive plan in all the aspects of the disciple-making strategy. Just a thought, the same events could be in more than one area. For example, giving Bible studies could be, small group Bible studies is a way of cultivating. You're doing Bible studies, but it's also a way of harvesting when you make appeals for decisions. So the disciple-making evangelism planning form. There's a blank form in the resource that you can find on the website. There's also an electronic one you can download with more space. But that was just a sample. Here you can find the blank one for you to start working as a personal ministries council and a church board. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there for the sake of time. But I really believe that this model, this grow your church evangelistic strategy, is a powerful framework in which we can function. It's a framework for our disciple-making strategy as a local church. So again, the mission of the church is to make disciples of Jesus Christ. The primary function of the church board is to have an active discipleship plan. And the GROW model is a framework that can help us to implement this plan practically. It can also be used on a personal level. Tonight's presentation was corporate, but even on an individual level, I can use these principles to reach out to others as well. Pray that this has been helpful and useful. Amen.